Welcome, everybody, to the NCI High Performance HVAC podcast. I am one of your hosts, Casey Contreras. I am joined with my other buddy here,
Adam Mufich.
And to say who we got sitting with us is the man, the myth, the legend is kind of an understatement. I would say Yoda, maybe Obi-Wan.
He's a really tall Yoda.
I would say so, yeah. Not as green. But
kind of Viking-like.
Yeah, I'd definitely give that. But the awesome Jeff Sturgeon. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here, and good to be here at AHR. It's been a really good show. Had a really good session on this topic yesterday in a live session in class. Had a lot of good response to it.
Yeah, I sat in that session. It was awesome as always. Really, myself, I don't know about you, Adam, no stranger to Economizers. My knowledge base is maybe not there, but
I'm a pretty big stranger. My background is residential, so I mean I know that there's dampers. They open and close. They bring in outside air, but yeah.
I've been working and been exposed to Economizers since I was 18. Back in 1984, I was working on buildings where the Economizers were some of the first airside Economizers in the country. And it's just been something I've been challenged to try to manage, repair, and be able to try to control ventilation. And some of the topics I talked about yesterday were success strategies to be able to approach acceptable operation and function of Economizers. And unfortunately, in the field, many are working, but they are not fully functioning, and we are really not capitalizing on all the benefits of them.
So then I think we need to take it back a little bit. What, in the most plainest form, what is an Economizer? Well,
in layman's terms, it is a controlled duct leak of the system, meaning that it allows outside air to enter the system to provide proper air dilution and ventilation within an occupied space that helps dilute CO2, VOCs, formaldehydes, anything that can be airborne. And they do provide a great solution for ventilation, but they can also provide a huge burden on the air conditioning system if not working properly.
Interesting. Now, are people very familiar with these things, or not even people, just technicians, companies, and they all pretty much do the same assessments or know how to do the same assessments?
It seems like everybody has the opinion that they know about them. But when I go out in the field with technicians and contractors, I get clear indicators that they really don't know. All they know is maybe a default setup. And some of the biggest problems isn't with the setup. It's with the installation and location of the sensors and setting the outside air to the proper airflows so we don't burden the engineering by allowing too many BTUs from outside to hurt the system or make that system job for controlling occupied space more difficult. So that is a huge load depending on the climate zone or state that you're in. And many states have opted to get rid of the Economizers because of the huge outside air load, like in the Southwest desert. It's challenging to maintain those Economizers because it's believed that, that outside air is too hot. And one thing has to be understood, that outside air load was calculated into the capacity of the system when it was originally engineered. So it should be able to handle that minimum load. Yes, here in Las Vegas, that, we do have, in other parts like Phoenix, you'll have 120-degree outdoor conditions.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Phoenix, yes, that's a burden on the system, but it was calculated into the original load. And where we reach a problem is the sensors weren't installed correctly, the outside air was not measured correctly, and today's sensors are much more sensitive than sensors of the past. And like in the Honeywell sensors, that sensor really should not be mounted to a metal surface because it picks up all the radiant heat, and you never ever capitalize on its function. They do, in the instructions, that's where the problem is.
What are those?
What are the instructions? Yeah, that.
Like one thing I wanted to chime in on, because I've done very limited commercial work and very light commercial work, but whenever I've installed an economizer, I've noticed usually it's like a third-party manufacturer, and the manual, the install manual, it's very vague.
There is a huge disconnect, and I talked about that in my session yesterday. I asked how many manufacturers were in their room, and I told them that they were doing a great job in trying to get us over the hump of the issues with outside economizer. But that disconnect and gap between the instructions for the equipment manufacturer and that second or third party that's making the economizer, they can be very vague. Because many times the economizer controller, the economizer, and the wiring harness to adapt it to the equipment come from the third party. And it has to be connected to the RTU. And there's in some cases, no clear instructions how to get that done. And I've gone out in the field with contractors, and they pull up a huge wiring harness, and they're like, we don't know how to connect this. And it's, not to make it sound simple, you match up the pin numbers.
Yeah.
And, you got to take the controls off the main control, take it over to the economizer control. And today's economizer controls, they have absolute control over the functions of the equipment, much more than the old ones. To the point where if it goes into alarm, it will not function. It will not allow cooling. And then you have the other big impact on how we're not capitalizing on the function of an economizer is improper setup. Today's economizer controllers don't work like the old black boxes.
No, they don't.
They modulate. They actually will allow mechanical cooling to come on while it's economizing. And that's, when it comes on and how long is dependent on a discharge temperature setting. And many guys are, I want to set that discharge temperature down to 45. Well, that means anytime it economizes, it's going to bring on mechanical cooling. So you're not saving and getting that economized air conditioning. Or free cooling, as the industry says. I've learned to say that's economized cooling.
Yeah.
But so setting the discharged air temperature too low just nullifies any benefits of kilowatt reduction of that economizer. It'll help, bring in more air, but we're not benefiting it for one of its main purposes.
So you mentioned something interesting yesterday that I never really considered. There's different control strategies based on what region you are in the country, right?
That is,
what are you monitoring?
Well, each climate zone in the country, there are some softwares out there that allow you to set up a mock site, and it'll tell you and you'll tell it what climate zone you're in, and it'll tell you what control strategy will give you the best return on your investment. And whether that be single enthalpy or differential dry bulb or differential dry bulb with demand control ventilation, each one will benefit different climate zones in a different way. In the southern states, you want to have an enthalpy control because of the humidity burden. And in areas of the Southwest and other drier climates, doing a differential dry bulb with demand control ventilation has shown again and again to be the highest return on investment, as well as the best control of ventilation air. Every 100 years, this industry gets the V put back in its name. Because every 100 years, it seems, in our past, we've had a pandemic that brought up the concerns of increased ventilation to mitigate airborne viruses and to try to reduce the potential bioburden buildup in a building. Because once it gets in the building and starts propagating, it's like a petri dish.
Oh, yeah.
Many entities during COVID, when buildings were empty, they just shut the systems off. And if there was a virus already introduced into that building, and conditions were correct, and it got warm and humid in the building during that period, well, they came back to a petri dish.
Yummy.
That's interesting. I look at, like, there's so many different things you need to think about with ventilation. You mentioned yesterday, carbon dioxide is one of them, and how the impact on people of high levels of carbon dioxide. You had a neighbor, do you want to tell the story about I think you said it was a kid that lived right near your house.
Oh, a friend of mine who is actually used to work with NCI, and his son was being diagnosed with ADHD. They were going to put him on some medications and everything else, and he just had a real attentive issue in the afternoons, doing his homework when he got home. So his father went around and measured. I'm like, measure the CO2 in your home. And it was over 1,400 parts per million. That young boy couldn't concentrate because he had diluted oxygen and excess CO2 environment he was in. So he started ventilating the home and providing fresh air, and gee whiz, he didn't need any ADHD medications. His attention disorder wasn't caused by anything medical. It wasn't caused by his environment. And then to find out that the school he was in, their CO2 levels were better, but still not acceptable. So that poor young kid, as the teacher's telling the parents, oh, he's got ADHD. Well, no, he was just susceptible to those concentrations of CO2, and he's doing much better now, and it's great. And in 2012, there was a huge program in California, and it focused on capitalizing on kilowatt savings by going out and doing a program to change out controllers, sensors, and introduce ventilation. But there was a school district that was specifically doing the program for kilowatt savings. Mm-hmm. And after the first phase of the program, their intent shifted because the metrics that were coming back showed that kilowatt savings was the least of their concerns.
What were they seeing?
Well, that school district became one of the highest testing score school districts in the country because, gee whiz, you give your kids some oxygen in the learning space. There's less absenteeism. They pay attention. They do their homework. They do their classwork. Teachers weren't as absent as much. They were more productive. So if we can get a 40% increase in curriculum retention in our schools just by having controlled ventilation, why aren't we moving on that? I know there's some school programs across the country, but they seem to be chasing those kilowatts rather than chasing a more conducive learning environment for Americans' children.
So, in other words, before our federal government comes out with statistics of where our students rank throughout the world, maybe we should do some CO2 testing first.
Oh, that would be a wonderful metric to put in a parallel report to our schooling and scholastic reports across the country. I think that might be alarming. I think that might be, you might be onto something.
I think so. Hint, hint. Anybody high up there listening?
I feel like there's got to be a shift, though, in education for technicians and commissioning agents, test and balancing companies, and that. Just because seeing your class yesterday, you had a pretty full room of people that were industry professionals that work on these things all the time, and pretty much it seemed like the entire room was lost.
It was kind
as
of
you were going through, like
deer in headlights almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if this is a priority, how are we going to provide that to government buildings, private organizations, and that? How do we commission these systems if people don't know how to work on them or set them up?
It's not just an educational thing. Like I said, the manufacturers have been doing a great job. The manufacturers of equipment and controls have been doing an exceptional job at developing new controls and embedding them in equipment. But again, there's that disconnection between the third party and the manufacturer to get them connected. And our industry's being, it's kind of plagued, like many other industries in construction and everything else. So we have that syndrome of not my job. And it seems like things get pushed off to the balancer and the commissioning agent that should have been done by the technician. And I don't know whether it's fear or not. Yeah, in yesterday's session, I had several questions that I asked of the group. First question, I may have had one or two hands raised. And then I asked, well, how many of you, after installing the Economizer, go back and look at the analytical data to find out if it's actually working? Crickets, not one hand went up.
Yeah, it was.
So we have to use that analytical information to make sure that we are, optimizing the function of the Economizer. And what we have found in California through the programs is, even though the intensive training and everything else, I tell everybody in my classes, when we teach Economizer classes in California, that do not mount the sensor to bare metal.
Well, that was a big one that you brought up. I totally forgot about that. Because when they give it to you in the kit, or even if it's factory installed, all those sensors are mounted directly to the metal.
Yeah.
And you did ask one question. You said you showed a bracket.
Yeah.
You showed a bracket. It's a standoff, so you're actually in the airstream. And you said, how many of you guys are actually installing your sensors in this manner? A full room, not one hand went up.
Not one hand. And frankly, I can go out into the field and I can look at 200 rooftop units and I won't see one that has the standoffs that basically support the sensor in the stream of airflow.
Yeah.
And the orientation of the equipment to the sun and the final location of the sensor. I mean, if the afternoon west sun is beating on the side of the unit that has the sensors, chances are it may never go into economizer, or it may go into economizing mode at an improper time. So that is the big, huge disconnect.
Is that anything you can really... I mean, is that you meaning more just sensor placement in that case, or just equipment orientation? So
No,
that would be more of an engineering standpoint.
Well, it's both. If I see that the equipment's oriented a certain direction, and in that hot afternoon sun is going to be beating on the side of the unit that I'm planning on installing the sensors, I want to put it on the other side of the unit. That way, the sensors are not being influenced by the radiant heat transmitted through the metal surface. They can be the temperature reading they get could be as much as 50 degrees off of actual temperature.
I know those blower panels, that insulation on there ain't very thick.
No. And the worst one, outside air. They'll put them in the outside air eyebrow, and that thing is sitting in direct sunlight. And the metal on an eyebrow, man, next time you're on a rooftop unit, go over there and feel the sides of that thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's over 100 degrees. And
I've still got scars, so I know.
It's still transmitting right to the sensor. They are so hypersensitive, it's not even funny. And the misconceptions, it boggles my mind that I can go up to a rooftop unit that's got embedded controllers and field-installed sensors, and you go look at the instruction book, and it's still in the unopened bag. And that unopened bag may contain the mixed air sensor that the contractor was supposed to install, and they didn't, and they're complaining that the thing isn't working. It's that not my job, not doing my job. And you've heard this before, Casey.
Oh, yeah.
Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. So most contractors don't know what to expect. They don't research the equipment, the controls, any harnesses, any conversions, anything that needs to be done before they get out in the field.
Yeah.
So the first time they realize that they're over their head, they're standing next to the equipment on the roof and going, what do I do? And, the supervisor will say, oh, that's okay. The commissioning agent will take care of it, or the tab agent will take care of it. Yeah, not my job. Because you don't get to say it's not my job because you don't know your job.
Oh, yeah. Well, and two, just kind of thinking back of my past, starting out residentially and then wanting to start to dabble into commercial, it's not fast-paced like residential. You got to slow down and do your research. Because, it's a package unit. Everything's already there. Everything's ready to go. Hook up the wiring, seal a little bit of ductwork, and then you're on your way. You don't realize how important it is for proper setup.
Yeah. This industry is a standout above other industries. I've never seen an industry where a professional individual is more willing to take out a screwdriver in their pocket and put it into a slot and turn it just to find out what it does. We need to slow down. We have an industry of people that work 5 years in the residential world, and they want to start their own company. Mm-hmm. And they only know a tenth of what they really need to know. Yeah. Well, I got my contractor's license. Yeah, that's more business stuff. That has nothing to do with knowing the code.
Your capability.
And the differences between residential and commercial and the nuances. And then that causes a lot of problems in our industry.
Absolutely.
So what do you see as let's talk about the top 3 pitfalls or challenges, mistakes that people make when commissioning economizers?
Not preparing themselves, not seeking education about what they're trying to do, not going through specific training and to learn the practices and procedures they need to hone before they can go out and repeatedly do something. Years ago, I worked for a pump manufacturer, and I ran the control panel division. And some of these control panels were very, very intense, whether they were sewer treatment plants, wastewater removal, storm removal, whatever. There were so many embedded functions with so many, sensors and everything else. And then we had to build a control panel to control all that. If we didn't know what was going on, starting with the specification of the outer enclosure, whatever, they want regular NEMA 3R, was it NEMA 4X, is it got epoxy coating, is it stainless, is there inner doors, whatever. All of that had to be known before we even built the panel. If the main part of our industry had to actually build the air conditioner and do that, and do that, we'd be in real trouble. So the not focusing on their job, not working as a team to know the challenges and barriers, and communication, probably the biggest one, and that relates directly to the ego, I think, of the technician.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
They're afraid to communicate to their superiors. They don't know what they're doing.
I could agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We all of us teach hundreds of students a year.
Well,
do we get hundreds and hundreds of calls a year? It may be an ego thing.
Isn't the whole thought fake it till you make it, though?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that doesn't work anymore.
Try to figure it out and YouTube it, right?
Yeah, fake it till you make it, and just don't let anybody know you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and learn on YouTube.
Or You just wait till everything blows up, and then you call, Jeff, help me. I've been guilty.
With our education contracts in California, after a student leaves the class, they can call me and I can continue their education in the field at no cost to them.
Yeah.
Why my phone isn't blowing up every day to go out and field mentor these professionals that want to excel in this industry drives me nuts. I will show up at the site. I will help them and guide them through. I'm not going to do it for them. I'm going to help and guide them through it.
Yep.
And many contractors do call us for field coaching out of our training center in California. But it isn't the number you expect. And I ask in the classrooms, why don't you guys want any help? And I think it comes down to an ego thing. They don't want to show their boss that they need help in the field. And that's a really poor mentality, because your boss knows full well you went to that class. He paid for you to come to that class. He's paying you to lose time. Basically, he's losing billable hours to send you to that class. And for you not to communicate that you need additional help is a failure, big time. So in our industry, there is an ego thing that guys just don't want to let their peers know what they don't know. They don't want their boss to know what they don't know. And it leads to a run to failure mentality. It ends a point where I've seen many systems where you go out and the outside airflow has been set, controls have been set, but wow, the airflow's at twice its design. The controls aren't set up. Discharge air temperature set incorrectly, so it's always running mechanical cooling. And I've been trying to wrap my head around the field coaching thing for years of why they don't want to engage in absolutely free field training. I don't understand.
I think there's a lot of aspects to it. We've known each other for 20 years, maybe a little more.
2010.
2010? So,
not 2009, I think is when we met.
And before you were even working for NCI, and we were contractors in the same class.
Yep.
And then you joined on with NCI, then I was going to your own classes. You know, always great, loving, fun. But when it came time to, hey, get Jeff out in the field, you're going to need help on this project, it was like, I don't want to show anybody how stupid I really am or how little I really know.
Do you think that's what it is, or do you think because it's a subsidized thing with the state, do you think it's not as much value? Like, do they have to have skin in the game?
Well, they have to come to the class and go through the certification class. Once they do that, I can go out in the field with them. And as you say, that's subsidized by the state of California. There's no limit to the amount of time and the amount of times that I can go out in the field with them. There's contractors, I've spent thousands of hours in the field training female tab agents, commissioning agents, technicians. There's companies that see the value and have no problem. And there's situations where I'm getting a call from the owner or service manager of the company for field coaching, and they're sending me out to the job, and the technician doesn't know I'm coming. And I get that nervous look of, oh no, Jeff's here. Oh no. And they do timidly walk around like, as if I'm evaluating them, and that's well, I am in the back.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm doing on the forefront.
It's taking that first step, that first plunge. I was very hesitant of Jeff coming out. I never called him. When my old man was like, is Jeff going? I'm like, I didn't call him. He's all okay. So he calls him. This is where they're going to be. Go. And I was sweating bullets.
I remember that restaurant.
Oh, yeah. And then after a little bit, it was like, okay, he's here to help. He's not here to critique. He's here to teach. And then we went to a restaurant one. And then because I was open to the whole idea of, now I realize I don't know what I know. I need Jeff. then we started getting into kitchens and more commercial balancing and things like that, and renovations.
Yeah, I remember that restaurant. It was a huge ventilation issue. The restaurant owner's best friend and neighbor told them that that swamp cooler on the roof wasn't doing any good, so they shut it off. Yeah. And that was actually the designated makeup air unit for the 6 exhaust fans in that restaurant.
Well, you talk about the importance of economizers. Once we had that building set up in the kitchen area or the cooktops, there was no air conditioning. It was just makeup air and exhaust. Extremely comfortable, no matter what the temperature was outside. The cooks loved us.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I remember what we had to do to kind of put the owner over the edge. I'm like, well, your restaurant is in such a negative pressure. I'm going to go over here to the drive-through window. I'm going to measure the space of the window. I'm going to measure your air velocity, determine the airflow, find out what my temperature differential is, and calculate the BTUs that are coming in through the drive-through window. And it was exceeding the rooftop unit over the kitchen. So because it was such a negative. And the other big thing, I think that, the one day I had another restaurant we went to. I don't know if this was the one I went to with you, but there were some grease hood cleaning guys that showed up after a bunch of adjustments were made.
Oh, we had that thing fully balanced. I was so ticked off.
Fully balanced. And we show up the next morning, and there's a hood cleaning guy readjusting all the belts and everything else. It's like, what are you doing? Oh, well, our boss wants us to put all these fans at full speed. It's like, can I have a list of your companies, please? Because I have endless work following you around.
Oh, yeah. See, but then the importance of, the training side of it. I remembered that in his class, he said, mark your positions. Just take a marker, wherever your damper positions are, mark it on the economizer. So, yeah, I was upset. They messed up our whole balance, but at least multiple pieces of equipment, I just waited for it to hit that mark. They're set.
Yeah, put it right back where we...
Exactly.
So that's just, not being in the commercial game, but, going and visiting, eating at restaurants and that, I think that's a huge issue. Building pressure issues with restaurants, you could feel it,
You can smell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing worse than walking into a restaurant and you can smell the toilets.
Yeah. Well, and in a lot of times, if you have a kitchen that's in a negative pressure and you are in an area that's in a deep water conservation mode, you have situations where there may be they're mopping the floor less, and if they don't have self-priming P-traps in the floor, well, they become dry. Then that negative air just sucks things right up into the environment. I drive my wife crazy because I'm a walking barometer. I walk into a place, I'm all, wow, this place is negative. I can feel it. I can smell it. And I can just see my wife roll her eyes. We've been together for 39 years. She absolutely accepts my idiosyncrasies. Plus, I am married over my head, so I try not to do that much. But I know I drive her crazy because I am so attentive to those things.
Oh yeah,
I'm a walking sensor, so I'm not smarter than anybody else.
I don't know about that.
I've been in the industry for a long time, been in quite a few sectors of the industry that most industry professionals don't even know exist, and I've made more mistakes than people that I've had to learn from, and especially in a period of time where there was no internet, and I was that redheaded stepchild at my company because I was hired as a journeyman right out of trade school because I had my journeyman's card, and I was working with all these other journeymans that had gone through the apprenticeship. They wouldn't teach me anything because back then that whole culture was, that might diminish that was job security. Don't teach the person beneath you anything. That way he won't take your job.
Yeah.
And I know that I went through a lot of that. And that culture's changed in much of the industry, but it's still there.
It's still there. I had to deal with it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I feel like a lot of people, especially like middle age, maybe slightly older than middle age, 50s, whatever it is.
Okay, good. I'm not middle age yet.
Yeah, well,
That's good.
No, I actually think middle age is like late 30s. I don't know.
Oh no, dang it.
So we are.
Okay.
But I think that the mindset is I had it tough. You guys better deal with this. You know what I mean? Because you have it easy right now. You better deal with the same amount of difficulty that I dealt with, and that's just not right. You're not encouraging people to grow, right?
Yeah. It is tough, and I'm discouraged quite often because I see professionals in the field, and I can see them doing something, and I know I can help them. I won't. I'll say something, the guy's all, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know all this. Time has nothing to do with knowledge.
Yeah,
Okay?
it really does.
It's experience. Okay? When I was making mistakes and had to look for, information years ago, there was a supply house in San Francisco. It was the Wurzbach Company, one of the oldest refrigeration and air conditioning suppliers on the West United States. They had a massive library, and their branch was open till 7 o'clock every day, and it allowed technicians to come in and do research in the library. And that's where I had to get a lot of my information, is just go soak it up somewhere, because my coworkers weren't going to tell me.
Yeah.
My service manager didn't know anything. I mean, for years I was like, the service manager, right? Yeah, I found out why he was only allowed to use a 4-in-1, a crescent wrench, and a refrigeration service wrench. That's all he was qualified to use. So I remember specifically asking him to go to an economizer class, because we had all of the military and government sites contracts for service and maintenance in all of Northern California. I used to sit and eat a sack lunch on the snack bar on the flight line of Beale Air Force Base when I was 19 years old, as I'm doing a maintenance on their kitchen, and I'd watch SR-71s land and take off all day. And we took care of a lot of critical sites. I wanted to go to that training, but he's like, no. Customers don't want to pay to have their economizers fixed. They don't think there's any benefit. And no, just employ your pocket repair kit and move on. And that's, I mean, in critical sites, that's not what you want to do, okay?
So there was a gentleman yesterday that asked you, he said, there's a difficulty because, there's mechanical issues with most systems. You have airflow issues, ductwork issues. You showed a picture of a curb adapter really choking down the airflow of a unit, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, what do you do if somebody just doesn't have the budget? You got to do the best you can. And I thought you had a really great answer to that.
Real good response.
The energy and everything that it takes to overcome a curb adapter makes it plain and simple that you should just rip up the curb adapter,
100%.
Rip up the roof curb and reorientate it if you have to, and set it back down, because it'll negate all of the costs or all the potential savings of that new efficient equipment. And when many contractors install a RTU on a curb adapter, they don't consider the increased static pressure. So they won't order a piece of equipment in a high static
Yep.
piece of equipment to actually overcome it. So that piece of equipment is actually plagued from day one. I mean, it's what did I say yesterday? The lack of imagination or something?
Yeah, but you also said, not every issue needs to be fixed all on day one.
That's correct.
It's like you develop a partnership, and you look at your customers like partners.
I learned a long time to not think of my customers as customers. I wanted to think of them as partners in my future success. Many of the repairs couldn't be burdened by the budget of that customer right away. So I would suggest phased repairs to allow them to make those repairs as their budget would allow. And there were benefits for the customer, but there were always also benefits for me in doing that. Because at the end of the job, I would actually probably bill out a little bit more, or in some cases much more than I would have if it was done all at once. And then I could also keep my crews busy during different times of the year. When we slowed down, I could go back into a phased repair. And in the end, that approach worked huge. And again, it created partners in success rather than just customers that I was, looking to bill for services.
Yeah, instead of being one and done, never coming back again, and then potentially calling somebody else, you're the go-to guy regardless.
Not to mention, I just created a free marketing source.
Yeah, absolutely.
That partner is going to go out of his way, by not any intention of mine, and communicate that to other building owners, facility operators, operating engineers, or whatever, going, hey, these guys fixed my problems, and they didn't tell me I had to do it all at once. We were able to work through a capital budget or work through a seasonal budget, so it's not overburdening them, getting into their profits and losses to a point where it's a huge impact, and working with them to solve problems. There was another situation where I went out with a contractor doing a focused ventilation program, and we had a 12,000 square foot building, 2-story. Second story was the engineering level, lots of design engineers and stuff like that. And this building was owned by a national restaurant chain that does all of their own engineering. We did an analysis of first of all, we walk into the front door, and as the door shut behind me, I can hear it whistling. I'm all, negative pressure.
Yep.
Okay, problem. In that 12,000 square foot building, I think there was 390 CFM of outside air total out of all systems on the roof of that building. And what I was seeing in the building was people listlessly walking around. They had a Starbucks coffee machine in the break room, and their bill was like $4,000 a month just to take care of that coffee machine.
Whoa!
So I walked through that space with a CO2 monitor, and their CO2 levels were much over 1,000 parts per million, and their engineering group was 3 months behind and everything. And we did all the repairs. There was some reducting done by the contractor. We had some live monitoring being done for 3 months, and after the 3 months was done, we came back. They had caught up on their backlog. Their Starbucks coffee machine costs had dropped to nearly a tenth. People were not tired and listless. It's amazing. We need to get a handle on fresh air and economizers.
All of that just because of proper adjustments of the economizer.
Yep, getting them functioning.
Think about that as a sales pitch. Like, do you spend a lot of money on coffee?
Yeah.
We have a solution for you.
Is your engineering team 3 months behind? And most people don't know how bad the environment is because they don't measure.
Yeah.
They don't have anything that gives them an indication. And then when we have spaces that do have live monitoring, like a demand control ventilation CO2 monitor on the wall, many of them are purchased to not display the CO2.
Of course.
So you still don't see it. And the ones that are displayed, typically they're running pretty good, because they don't want people to see, your CO2, you're 800 parts per million over outside ambient. That's crazy.
Especially nowadays with how easy it is to get the information of what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
What levels.
And here in Las Vegas, what do casinos add to the air to help counteract that? Oxygen.
I was going to say booze, because every time I walk into the casino,
They pump
it doesn't
oxygen
go too good for me
into the casino to keep people more awake. keep them gambling longer, pulling the...
That explains why I can stay up only when I'm in Vegas at a casino. I can stay up till 4 a.m. and not have a problem.
Their CO2 issues are kind of mitigated by injecting oxygen into the space. Because here we have very, very hot air, to bring in and ventilate, and that's a huge burden on the mechanical cooling systems.
Yeah.
And if I can inject some oxygen and keep someone at the gambling table for a few more minutes, I may make some more money.
So they really thought of everything. House always wins, right?
Yeah.
Are there any studies done, not on the health aspects, but more so on the energy savings, like regional across the country? I know a lot of contractors walk up to a piece of equipment and they're like, well, this guy doesn't have it in his budget to repair this non-functioning economizer. So, is it something you could sell on energy?
There are some white papers on energy savings. I don't know of any that are regional. I mean, across the country. I do know that some are regional. The focused programs that we implemented in California in 2012 through 2015.
Yeah, I think so.
We developed and wrote white papers on those, on the savings, and they are quite substantial if you get things set properly. And you have the sensors mounted properly. They're not picking up radiant heat from metal surfaces. They're not economizing when they shouldn't be. All of those things put into play. And the energy savings is huge. But that shouldn't be our main focus. The main focus of controlled ventilation is for the dilution of occupied space air and make it more healthy. And especially with airborne bacteria, viruses, concerns of pandemic reoccurrence, all of that. Ventilation is, proper ventilation is the first way to combat that. Okay.
Well, see, the way I look at it is some of the most important, or at least the process for it: safety, health, comfort, efficiency.
Absolutely.
Now, sure, we've got all these code standards, utility programs where we have to set a lot of these things up, but who's paying at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Pay attention to your customer. Focus on their safety and health. Make sure they're comfortable so they can be productive, and then they'll get the energy efficiency that they're looking for.
Yeah. And in the cases where there's systems that economizers are working correctly, well, then they fall into another problem of a run-to-fail mentality where the maintenance is very minimal, often dictated by what the customer wants. I spent a couple of years sitting on the AHR 180 committee. I was put there by Bill Baker to stir things up a bit and try to rewrite the standard to be more useful for technicians and practitioners rather than just engineers. And even it was really, really hard. And even if a building had an economizer that was working properly, because of improper maintenance checks and maintenance, in a 3 to 4 to 5 year period, the economizers are not functioning. They're becoming a huge burden on the system, and our industry and technicians really need to become more aware of what they're working on. Put their egos aside. Communicate
absolutely.
with people when they need help. Okay. Why I don't have more technicians in California calling me for free field training when they come to our classes is just beyond me. And hopefully it'll change. It is a change in culture.
Well, I mean, now being out of California for several years now and living in Arizona, there's a guy that went to one of your air balancing classes, and he's certified. He's an air balancer now. He calls me up. I don't know how he got my number, but he called me up. And that, of course, those programs don't apply to him because he's out of the Edison territory. But I'm like, send me what you got. Something's weird. And I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm like, I know Jeff talked about pencil whipping. There's no way you're getting the exact RPM off of that motor that you wrote down or what it's rated for. And he's like, I need help. I need help bad. I think if I got you out here in the field one time, I think I'll really be able to take off with that. And that's what we did. I headed down to Phoenix, spent the whole day with him on a gas station, balancing that thing out. And now he calls me from time to time. Things are going great. I got a question,
Confidence is huge.
Oh, yeah.
If a technician doesn't have the confidence to do something, they won't do it.
Nope.
So it does require a change in culture in our technicians and in our industry. And I think I think we've said enough. I think we're wrapping it up. But it's been. I'm hoping for some change, and I know the industry, main parties of the industry, are doing amazing jobs to make economized cooling much easier, but there's still a lot we need to overcome in the field, and technicians need to get over their egos and whatever it might be to seek help.
Yep.
Help is out there.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we want to thank you. That's the end of the High Performance HVAC podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Jeff, thank you. Adam, buddy, always good, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Awesome.